Exactly. And especially when you talk about the fact of short form content, short form podcast content appearing on our TikToks and our YouTubes, suddenly that's influencer content. So it is all one and the same thing. And what I'm telling you over here is that brands are recognizing the absolute need for authentic content from creators like yourselves. Then we said to consumers or ordinary South Africans, where do you want to be spoken to by brands? Every single one of those top pink places are their offline channels. What that means is that South Africans are saying to brands, I don't want to see you in my online spaces. I don't want you there. I want to see you on TV, on billboards, on posters, on sponsored events. I want to see you everywhere but in my socials. And I want to pause for a second. Why do you guys think that is? Oh, sorry, I just want to go there first and then I'm going to come to you, Lungelo. You get bored.
Well, when we just passing with a billboard, like last week I saw a billboard naked, where I was like, oh, Tyler got naked. And that sparked interest.
That's exactly it. Lungelo, anything else? Another question?
Yeah, no, I'm saying, I think it's disturbing when you like watching something that you want to watch. Then there's this ads that keep coming, and there's these ads that keep coming, and it's like, it's just disturbing, you know?
Yeah, like when
you just want to watch what you want to watch. Yeah.
I feel like, in a sense, it kind of forces everyone to see your face. Even when they don't want to see you, they're still going to see you. I think, yeah, from my perspective.
So it feels forced.
In a sense, yeah. Because, like, who's this guy? I don't know him.
Yeah, because now like they don't longer allow you to like just skip the ad. Now you have to watch at least, you know, one of the ads, and then it gives you that 5 seconds, then skip ad thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like it's forced.
Yeah. So I'm hearing boring. I'm hearing forced. I'm hearing, how did you slip into my DMs? Like I didn't invite you there. Yeah. Yeah. Is that it? I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, because the type of content that brands want to put out there is the type of content they can control. And quite honestly, the type of content they can control is boring, because when we are in our social spaces, we're there to be entertained. We're not there to hear about how wonderful that bar soap works when I wash my legs. Like I just don't care when I'm, looking for laughs. And that is the big challenge that we as Kantar give to brands constantly. And that's why I want to say this is good news for you guys, because it is slowly landing. So much so that we've said to brands, can you stop using the word advertising, please? And replace that word in your dictionary and replace it with the word entertainment. If you want to create any content, and if you want anybody to give a rat's ass what you have to say, you've got to create entertainment. And they have recognized the fact that there are probably out of touch with pop culture and trends, and therefore they need to tap into the stuff that you guys have, which is going to get them to that place of entertainment and connection. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, so I mean, ideally, in 2 years' time, I'd love to rerun media reactions and see some of those online channels move up, because that's good news for all of us in the room. We don't want South Africans to never want to be spoken to by brands online, because that's not a sustainable future for content creators, nor is it for brands, because the whole world is moving online. So we need to find a solution to that issue. Okay, like, even Gen Zs don't think it's lit. Nobody does. It ain't lit. This always surprises brands, because they're like, but Gen Zs are online all the time. I'm like, exactly, they demand even more because they're online all the time. They know why they're online. And so it's really not working for anybody. I beat myself to it. This is where I was going to tell you about the whole thing about entertainment. So I've covered that off. The reason is that brands need to be creating entertainment in order for people to want to be spoken to in their online spaces. That's what I was kind of going with here. Which kind of leads me to a conversation that has happened quite a lot lately, which is around the types of brands who have some backing, creating platforms for creators like yourselves and and people who are solving for like entrepreneurial, people with an entrepreneurial mindset who are looking to create their livelihoods through online and social media, they are enabling this kind of trend. So we've actually got Moyen in the room, which was so coincidental and so amazing. This is Moyen from EDC Squared, and Longelo also. You work with Salt, eh? The Salt. Exactly. So the concept is really cool. It is that these platforms are training people in how to create good social content and giving them encouragement to be posting really, really frequently so that they learn what they're good at creating. You're only going to learn through practice. And the more you practice, you'll figure out where your niche is, where your authentic voice is. And then you become the expert in that beautiful, authentic space. And then you take brands and pair them up with the specific content creators who match that type of brand. And suddenly you've got this beautiful partnership where you've created entrepreneurial income and brands are winning too. So I've listed over here EDC Squared because I was not aware of the Salt before, but you know what? I'm going to add it on for next time. And I included AMPT as well because what AMPT is doing is enabling content creators to create good content. It's such a barrier to try and find a studio because none of them want to charge you less than like $2,500. Then you've got to get the camera crew, then you've got to get the editing. It's really, it's a big barrier to the democratization of data if we're going to do that and to the pursuit of entrepreneurship. And so places like this, sponsored by big brands, I know MTN sponsors here, that's what's going to unlock that kind of potential for us. So there really does seem to be a trend for this. And the big brands that I speak to are desperate to get involved in this. So I think there's going to be more and more of these kinds of initiatives. Okay, I want to take you guys through some ideas around what you can do when you are in your own niche space creating authentic content. And it's very broad, but it gives you an idea for what South Africans are interested in consuming and what matters to them when they think about brands. So I'm doing this with a brand lens because I'm trying to teach or share information around if you were to ever be connected with brands, what is the type of stuff that they need you to be able to talk about on their behalf. Okay, so this is just to say that in the study, we asked people to classify themselves as to whether they were formally employed or whether they created their own income. And in that, in South Africa, amongst the connected population, more than 1 in 3 people generate their own income. They don't rely on formal employment. And if you ask them to categorize what type of services they offer in their employment, it is predominantly, well, no, one of the key things in there was content creation. There were all kinds of other things as well. But it makes intuitive sense. What is the content that South Africans are interested in? Inclusion and diversity really matters, not the fake stuff, the actual authentic inclusion story about seeing yourself represented, not just as a face, but in culture, in language, in nuance, seeing yourself in the space of the entertainment that brands are creating. It really matters. So what you're looking at here is we spoke to, through this data, we spoke to different groupings of people. So on the bottom there, you can see the post-war and boomers, and on the far right is Gen Z. The line chart is the percentage of people who believe that diversity and inclusion is important to them. And the bar chart is whether or not they say that seeing diversity and inclusion in the content created by brands will influence their purchasing decision. So here's the thing, over 80% of Gen Zs, which is where brands actually care about right now because they know that they're the future with the purchasing power, over 80% of them say diversity and inclusion is important to them, and just under 50% say it influences whether I'm going to engage with that brand and buy stuff from them. Can you imagine the implication for brands? If they get that wrong, they're really screwing themselves. So we need to be authentic by representing the real version of people in our ads. In our entertainment, not our ads. 40% of people say that not enough brands are doing a good job of representing people similar to me. So we just heard that just around 50% will say, I'm not going to engage with you. Then we get another 40% that are saying you guys still aren't getting it right. So the potential is very obvious. On top of that, the second thing that people care about is social and climate issues. There was a perception amongst, I don't know, the global north, that Africans care less about sustainability and are more focused on other issues. It's not true. We asked people to rank, we gave them a list of 50 different types of sustainability concerns that may have been a worry to them. And they prioritized for us the top 5. Those are poverty, lack of jobs with a sufficient wage, climate change, abuse or violence against women, and water pollution. This is specific to South Africa. If you can touch on any of those concerns authentically in a way that works for a brand, that's gold, because people care. So we as content creators are able to take real life examples because we're currently living them. Our friends and family and everybody we know, we're living those lived experiences. We can take those and create content from them. In South Africa, 3 in 4 people, that's like the majority of us, and I'm excluding myself in there because I'm aware of my privilege, but 3 in 4 people say that they have personally experienced discrimination in the past year. That's like everybody. Yeah. And then you've got just under 80% who say that businesses have a responsibility to make society fairer. That's not the government has a responsibility. I think we've all agreed that the government isn't probably going to do the best job of it. Politically, they can do their job. But in terms of creating actual fairness and addressing some of the systemic issues that we have in this country, a lot of eyes are on businesses to do it. Yet, just under half of people say that brands aren't taking a stand in support of the social and sustainability issues that matter to them. So it's just another data point to tell you that there really is a big need and brands haven't gotten it right in the past. Okay, and my last thing that I want to tell you is that if you ask me, what is the main thing that every single big brand is interested in? It's something called meaningful difference. Meaningful difference is what separates one brand from another. It's what says that I'm going to pick this black chair over that black chair because this one was called A and that one was called C. What made me choose A? It's what we call meaningful difference. A meaningful difference is kind of has to tick a couple of boxes. It says it meets my needs, whatever my needs might be. They can be functional, like maybe I really needed a chair to sit on, but they can also be emotional. Like I really wanted something with curves and I need something that fits into my lifestyle because I'm a passenger princess and this needs to sit next to me and make me look good. So whatever my needs are, I need that from this chair, okay? Meaning, and then difference is how is that chair different from anything else in the market? In my mind. It doesn't have to be function. It can be, well, that chair, that offers me like, I don't know, it makes me look good or whatever it is. Okay, whatever function is important. That's what makes it different. Now, if brands are creating content that is resonating with consumers, they are automatically meaningfully different. And from a brand perspective, why that matters to them is that South Africans are willing to pay up to 14% more for brands that are meaningfully different, even in a climate like today, which is highly cash-strapped. Like people don't have extra money to spend, but consumers will spend more on brands that are meaningfully different. And we've just seen in the data that they've said they will because those are issues that are important to them. So if you use this kind of language when you engage with brands or on brands' behalf, that's what's going to work for you. Okay, and that's what I have to share today. So yeah, I hope that was helpful.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Yes.
Yep, I'll pass you the mic.
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is good. So I was recently watching a podcast, right, last night specifically, and they were breaking down the difference between an influencer, content creator, and just all around, right? So from my perspective, right, people that create content can be anyone and everyone, depending on how consistent you are and what type of niche you categorize yourself, whether you have 1 follower or 2 followers, right? And then we have influencers who have a larger amount of following and deliver more of a like lifestyle, more fashion, more driven type of vibe. But my question is, how can a small creator, content creator specifically, engage with brands without brands engaging with their likes and their comments, even though the content is still valid? Thank you.
Did I hear you right saying with their likes and their comments? So if they're looking at, do you have like, how many likes do you have? Like traditional social media metrics. I actually think that's an interesting one. So let's take that one, yeah.
It's a really good question. Okay. this is, you're touching on one of the things that brands actually find the hardest thing in the world is to figure out how to track the return on their investment. So if they have invested in you as an influencer, they need to prove to their finance team that that investment was useful to them. Otherwise, they can't do it again and they won't get the budget next time round. So what they do is finance teams tend to focus very heavily on exactly what you've just referred to, which are fairly superficial metrics around engagement, likes, comments, maybe some shares. But that doesn't necessarily speak to whether that content creator has actually created meaningful difference for your brand. It just speaks about whether people, while they were scrolling, thought that was funny. That's it. But did that piece and does that partnership actually contribute to the way that consumers perceive my brand and whether or not they love my brand? That's a whole nother story. And the only way for brands to track that is through companies like Kantar, who run for them brand studies, and we break that down in the most biggest amount of detail and get to the point of meaningful difference for them. So if we can prove that the various activities and initiatives that they do impact their meaningful difference, then it works. But that actually, unfortunately, is not the space that you guys can influence. You can't do that for them. They need to be able to buy that data and they need to be able to look at it, but you'll never get access to it. So for you guys, for now, the best that you can do is focus on those engagement metrics and create content that positions them as meaningfully different. Then you've done your job.
And if I can just also add on to that, I think what happened I think TikTok has really changed the game of social media. And I think that once brands then get this data from Kantar and realize that they're lacking in meaningful difference, the way in which you engage right now, we're moving towards the era of the micro influencer. Finding your niche space because of the algorithm wars is going to be more important than ever. And I think they just haven't caught up fast enough to be able to determine those metrics that matter to micro influencers, all about your connection. So keep on doing what you're doing. And hopefully when they do wake up, you're the sets of people that they want to target.
Yes, I just wanted to ask what I asked you earlier regarding like me as an upcoming brand. This is my brand, Vibration Taylor.
Vibration Taylor.
I'm an
very nice.
artist, a hip hop artist. So I would like to see myself getting to a point where I could collaborate with other brands, like the artists of the likes of Casper Nyovest and these big artists, you know? So now my dilemma is, how do I approach brands, you know? How do I, where do I touch on? What is my angle when because the language that they speak, it's completely different from what we speak on the streets, you know? So it creates a certain disconnection. So I just want to know how to appeal and when do I think I'm ready to actually approach a brand? What qualifies me?
What qualifies you is your confidence and your ability to know, you know how well your skill is positioned in the world that you are operating in. So whether it's the music world, whether it's the podcasting world, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's the building of buildings category, you know if you're good. And if you are confident in the skill that you have, then what you need to do is approach media agencies and creative agencies, not brands directly. They outsource all of that to the agencies that do the coordinations for them. So I'm thinking out loud here, but the type of thing you can do practically is literally put into ChatGPT or even Google and ask which agencies accept, how would I word it? Like almost which agencies are open to meeting content creators, or in your case, music artists or whatever your particular trade is. And then approach those agencies with a good pitch. And then they will include you in their database. And then when brands are looking for particular types of services, they would reach out to you.
If I
Okay,
can,
so media and creative agencies. Don't go to the brand. They don't do anything themselves. They outsource it all. And they take all of their direction from their agencies.
Stace, also if I'm adding on to that, you touched on something that's happening right now in the online space. You may have seen the debates about the creative agency in South Africa and management teams, right? As an artist, you're like, where are the management teams? yeah, we've seen artists that we think are huge and partner up with management teams and not really be able. So I guess my point is think of yourself as entrepreneur. Your content creation is your business, and that, like with every entrepreneur, you're going to have to upskill yourself on the commercial element. You may not be excellent at all of it, but I think that as artists and creatives and creators, we ought to be looking at our content, at our brands as our businesses. So that requires you to put on a sort of, and so you got to pitch yourself like a business person would. You got to network. And I think that's the power of having conversations like this. We can really mobilize and resource share and upskill each other. Any more questions? Hi, Oluchi. How are you? I met Oluchi. She is also another podcaster and content creator. You'll have seen her stuff on TikTok. Absolutely phenomenal. What is your question?
Okay, I was late, guys. My car got caught up. I wanted to find out, I'm sure you guys have answered this question, obviously. Thank you so much, guys, for this presentation. It really helps us people who are new in the space. Is authenticity from the creator side. We see influencers and we see content creators that are really not authentic and are not living the content that they're creating. Is that important for brands, or can I just fake it through and hope for the best? And it's important to me because I create my work based on my lived experience. And I always wonder if it's going to get me far, or must I look at what's happening and try to follow the trends that are happening on social media to make it?
Ooh, go ahead.
Your absolute biggest, most differentiating factor is yourself and your authentic content. And if you think about yourselves and how you consume social media, hands up who loves those clearly sponsored brand ads that are super fake and look really painful. Is it doing anything for the brand? No. In fact, in many cases, I get so annoyed that I think I might actively avoid that brand in the future because it's not authentic. So you got to stick to what makes you. You got to stick to what is real. And brands, you see from the brand perspective, and I do understand this, they are terrified that content goes viral, whatever the hell that means, and ruins them, has some big reputational risk to them, and then their finance teams freak out, and then their bottom line is influenced. You can understand why that is stressful, but they are collectively starting to realize that they actually have no choice because they've seen that controlled content doesn't perform for them. So you keep doing you, and eventually they will catch up.
And Oluchi, if I must also add to that, is what Stacey showed with Gen Z. This generation is demanding it. Authenticity is not a nice to have. It's not a question of whether is it going to work, what should I. It is what we are demanding now. The sheer, the way that we've been inundated by brands, especially in the online space, is especially what makes your authenticity refreshing. It's exactly why consumers do not want to hear from brands online. So when they wake up, as Stacey said, when we run that study again, and we hope to see that South Africans are now more receptive to being spoken to online, it would have been content creators like you that are actually moving the needle. So towards authenticity, it's a demand, it's not nice to have. Yeah. Well, I'd actually like, thank you, Stacey, but you know what I'd like? I'd like for us to sort of have a debate and a discussion about the sort of main concerns and themes happening in the content creation space in South Africa.
Would you like me to stay? Or would you
Of
like me to
course,
join
I
the
would
audience?
definitely like you
As I
to.
stay up here?
Oh, yeah, you can pass
Or
the
is it
mic.
audience? Oh,
Well,
pass the- I'll be your mic passer.
join the
Okay,
mic,
good.
be part of it, and we're
Yes.
all gonna have a discussion together. Guys, so you asked a very pertinent question. Is there a difference between a podcaster, an influencer, a content creator, thought leader? And it definitely is blurring the lines, right? And I think that's probably a good thing. It's a good thing that we're not going to fit squarely into boxes. But the blur also means that, and the boom in what's happening also means that it doesn't come with, it comes with its downsides, right? You mentioned brands are not speaking the language that is being spoken on the streets, but what's our responsibility as well? So I wanna ask you guys, let's start off with some controversies. We've seen some prominent podcasters / influencers really take up a lot of space in terms of what we're talking about online. And then naturally that translates to brands being terrified, as Stacey said. And we know one of the biggest podcasters in this country. I don't even need to mention the name. We're not going to say the name. And the comments made recently. And then there's been discussions, should content creation, podcasting, the things that we say, and in occupying our authentic space, when do we cross the line? What responsibility do we have? We don't want to be filtered. We're independent. That's part of the authenticity. It's part of the power. But do we also have a responsibility? When do we take it too far? Anybody with a point of view, I'd love to hear from you. Oluchi.
Okay, I always tell people I'm taking over that guy's spot, by the way. You guys better watch the space. What I want to do, I'm not talking about the short form entertainment, but I do believe that if you are doing long format entertainment, you have a responsibility to research the topic that you are speaking about. There's a big difference between offending someone and speaking something truly that's substantiated by facts. So if you are doing long form content like you guys, you should, because that could be an Oprah Winfrey, Felicia Mabuza. So it's your responsibility to make sure that you're speaking the truth. You can't be talking at your neck. It's not a small TikTok brand. So that's my opinion about it.
Yeah, I think that's valuable. But the downside of the online space and our attention span and how quickly we have to grab attention is that it doesn't allow room for nuance. And long form content is, as you saw, it's not the direction, or there's still room for it, of course. But what we know is that short form content is really what's exploding right now. Do you have a point of view?
Well, I'm gonna start off with the quote that everyone knows, right? So I'm sure everyone knows this one. With great power comes
responsibility.
Exactly. So with the recent claims with Abo podcast in here, those people in jail, you know them. So it got me thinking, because it also included like people in parliament, and they were talking about regulation with podcasting, about how it can be out of hand. I feel like people that are older can't come up with the rules for podcasting. We need to come up with the rules for podcasting, because at the end of the day, it needs to be regulated, but it must be regulated in a way that is uncensored but censored, and doesn't affect but builds and creates. I like to also call myself controversial at times, but I love controversy, because it takes us out of a space where we can talk about things that no one talks about. But the problem starts when we take it too far and we start to insult. Because a lot of podcasts that are coming up in South Africa are based off negative energy. Everybody just wants to hate. Everyone wants to speak about other people. Everyone wants to trash other people. But if we can have different versions of podcasts that entertain different types of markets and actually educate our kids, because we don't even have podcasts for kids.
Yeah.
Our kids are actually watching the things that we're consuming, and we're wondering how they act, why they behave a certain way. It's because of the content that's already out there, especially with clubs as well. Especially now, since clubs are moving to the space of podcasting, I feel that it's also going to be very dangerous, because now it's going to put everyone in that situation where we can talk about anyone and anything just because we have the authority and we have the right to, which is definitely wrong. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for that perspective. I think round of applause, because I think we can all agree. I also think, as a content creator, and our podcast is focused on a more social justice, like really addressing racial equity, I think it does become demoralizing for each content creator, each in your own niche space, whether it's fashion, and to consistently be putting so much effort into creating content and actually building this medium that is so brand new. We've barely scratched the surface in South Africa. 90% of podcasts still sit overseas. And we're all trying to figure out how to monetize and push it forward. I think it's demoralizing to see the ones that take up the public psyche be exactly the ones that are. So anybody else with a point of view, please can you pass the mic?
Alrighty. I think the whole point of podcasts was to skip the format of traditional interviews.
Yeah.
You know, and I think what I like about podcasts, it's so liberating, because you can actually touch on different. You can even get to know the guest better than I've known so many people, like so many artists better just because of the podcast and to know their stories and stuff. But yeah, I feel like in terms of freedom of speech, there is a thin line. You know, there is a thin line that we as podcasters and stuff that we have to also adhere to, you know, and learn. I think it's also a matter of sometimes we get into the space where we haven't researched about, you know, media law and things like that, you know, which actually affect that space. But it's so informal,
Yep.
you know, these days. So it's a very thin line, you know, and I think we as podcasters, we need to do our own job first,
Yeah.
which is to know our rules and our lines, you know, our lines that we should not cross, so that we can, you know, remain relevant. And yeah, but controversy does also work in a way. I think sometimes they use it purposefully, you know, to draw, because like with the same podcast that my brother just mentioned, he actually got more viewers, more subscribers after that incident. So I don't know, maybe even our society is also fixated on, as he said, negative energy, negative, you know, but we have to change the narrative.
I think that is such an important point on, it's all part of the upskilling as well that we have to do. Our responsibility as content creators is, what is the difference between freedom of speech and hate speech? What is the difference between opinion and defamation of character? And I think that upskilling ourselves on that sort of language and understanding, some content creators will swing the other way, knowing very well what they're saying is defamatory and still persist. We've seen, you know, some people being sued. It's a very interesting conversation. So yeah.
Senna, do you know what I would love to? Do you remember that conversation? Senna and I were
Yes.
presenting at a conference last night, and one of the questions came up from one of the big brands. He was speaking on behalf of one of the big brands, and he was asking us, I mean, pretty much one of the biggest brands in our country, and he was asking us about the idea of authentic viral content. So, you know, you might, what did you call them? Templates that brands create.
Yes, so like TikTok templates. Have you guys seen that? Like, yeah, the games, yeah. Like, you laugh at me because of the head thing. Yeah, you get it, yeah.
So let's say one of those goes viral and you see your face in that, and you were the reason that that brand gets that massively viral content, even though you chose to participate in the template exercise. Should you or should you not be compensated for that?
Yeah.
From the brand.
Yeah, actually, let's open it up. What do you
Yeah.
think? Organic content, user-generated content. It goes viral. There was a drop your bars challenge we saw with another brand. Some of that stuff went viral. Should a brand compensate you if that takes? You saw with the other bread brand as well. The picture that went up, and it was a very endearing picture, and then there were concerns of, did you compensate the creator when there was no prior agreement? What do you think?
Well, if it's his idea, or yeah, the brand should compensate the creator, or
Okay.
because I wanted to touch on something more legal term. It was, I don't know if it was mentioned in the news. I think I heard it on radio that if you're a content creator, I mean, if you really take your podcasts seriously, like you take it seriously as a business, you need to IP your ideas, because there is a lot of people, they're like stealing ideas. You need to IP your idea very, very fast, because brands have all the money. They can take your idea and then just run with it, and you just left with nothing.
Yeah, that actually, that's a very big conversation. And having been in the legal fraternity, one of the most devastating things that you see, or that I certainly saw in working for representing big corporates, is the infinite amount of resources. To protect your property is also, as a content creator, I mean, we're trying to figure out studio costs. We're trying to get our content out there on a consistent basis. Access to like accessible legal resources to be able to IP your things are a thing. We're speaking access to justice in this country is a thing. It's a conversation that should be part of the larger zeitgeist, yeah.
I wanted to add another thing. As much as we're all saying yes, I also think we should be careful of entitlement. I don't know if you guys
What?
remember, there was the girl who created the cafe challenge for Beyonce. And then it was in
yes.
overseas, they do get paid for creating content. So
Yeah.
she did get her coins from the viral video, but she had that entitlement that she's supposed to get tickets to the Renaissance concert, which was not true. I mean, if you're already creating content, it shouldn't be an entitlement. I mean, I like that Albany pictures that were trending back in the day, and then Albany got backlash for not engaging with that. It was the choice for the brand. I do think that if they did, then there was going to be that entitlement that they should pay the child, they should pay the photographer. So as much as we're saying yes, we also need to look at, you were creating it for your own entertainment. Just because it went viral for you as well. So we say yes, but we should also look at, do the brands really, because I mean, there's like 1.5 million people creating content right now.
Yeah. I think it also it puts up a bigger conversation of, I know we're all sitting here, we're all hoping for that viral moment or the tipping point. I guess the thought that Olushi just brought up to me is that we should be looking at, okay, what happens when the tipping point does happen and we do go viral? How are we going to monetize, right? Because I don't have a problem. You know, the demure, exactly, right? The demure, viral, the very demure, very, very mindful creator created, it's now in the dictionary. Like it was what Oxford, like #1 year 2 word used last year. And what happens when the tipping point does happen? Have you educated yourself enough? Have you looked at revenue streams? Have you looked at how you're going to leverage that virality when it does happen is an important question. Yes. Yeah, sure. Last question, please.
Yeah, adding on to what she said, we say yes that we should get paid, but what are we doing about it? Because, you know, there's this TikTok page, a soccer team in the UK, they use our Amapiano music and they trend and South Africans love it. And now there's another big brand that used our music and they know how to, yeah, they also know how to, they know our lingo now, you know, but what's the code? They're probably gonna use it soon. But we say, yes, we want to get paid, but what are we doing? We're still using TikTok, we're still creating, we're not doing anything actively to help ourselves. We're only just putting all the pressure on the brand, and it's like, they didn't ask us, though, to do that, you know?
Organize.
Yep.
Guys, we need to organize.
Yep. Yeah, like you completely, we need to organize. And I think that's also a very, it's such another discussion of, I think the culture bustling in this country is absolutely on a level that like I can't even describe. I think with working with other brands and being part of a global agency where you get to work with colleagues in other markets, the creative economy in this country is just bubbling with potential. And it is very disheartening to see instances where that is not appreciated but appropriated without due recognition. It's a question, how are we helping ourselves? American Zulus, did you guys see that? Did you guys, hey, yes. Yeah.
Can I say it's chai? No.
No, it's chai.
It's
No,
chai.
not wrong context. I'm teaching you some Gen Z lingo, please.
Guys, it was super cool to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. Really, like very, very cool. Thank you. I want to take a, can I take a picture?
Yes,
before-
let's take a selfie
Hey.
on stage. Yes.
Is the lighting good or bad?
Guys, also, just before that, please can you scan the QR code and give us follows on YouTube? Because
also TikTok, also Instagram, we're so team.
like, we're struggling on that platform.
Okay, how do we do this thing? We get everyone
Okay,
in.
cool,
How do we
yeah.
do it?
Everyone in?
There you go. Everyone smile.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks. We're still going to be hanging. We have an interview soon. We're recording here, but we're around. And thank you so much for coming out. You came out from all the way from Carltonville. So thanks for joining us. Yeah.
And to Amp Studios, guys.
Amp Studios, the
The
team.
team behind.
Shout out. We love this team.
Thanks.